Nate Boyer, welcome. How's it going, man?
It's all right, man. How are you doing?
Doing well. Ready for some rest and recuperation. It feels like I can hardly get a day off.
Good, good.
Good.
What's been going on?
Oh man, it's one thing to start a podcast. It's another thing to launch your own production company, and then it's
Mhm.
a whole different thing to try to manage everybody else's shows on top of your own.
Right. Yeah. It's funny. It's wild.
Yeah, man. It's an all hands on deck situation here at Security Halt. But that's the environment we thrive in, man. The complex, the unknown, and the ridiculously rewarding. So I'm happy and finding myself floating these days, man. What about yourself? You got a lot going on your plate as well, too.
Yeah, definitely. It's been a wild, definitely been a wild time. I've been working on a D-Day 80th anniversary documentary right now,
Oh
um,
wow.
which is pretty cool. And so I was out in Normandy in June, and then since then, just been working on that and a few other things. I have MVP, which stands for
Yep.
Emerging Vets and Players. It's a nonprofit, brings together combat vets and former pro athletes. And, we made a film a few years back, came out in 22. And so working towards making more of those, like that's really what I want to do. I want to make more movies, tell more stories. Um, but other than that, just trying to navigate a few personal things. I had to be completely transparent, I've I recently had, a good, she's a good friend of mine now. We were in a relationship for several years. She lost her mom
Mm.
um, and it's incredibly hard on her. I can't even imagine, mom was pretty young and it was very sudden. And, so going out there to try to be with them and support them. And it's like around the holidays and, you have these stages and phases in life, I think, where, you kind of get pulled back to what matters, family and
Yep.
love and people that matter to you. Not that making a D-Day documentary doesn't matter. Like it
Yeah.
does. But at the same time, it's not a personal life thing. It's a personal project
Exactly.
and it's meaningful. Um, so yeah, you start to and then you're in your 40s and you're like contemplating not just mortality, but just like the next 40 years, if you're so lucky to
Yeah.
get those, like, what are you going to do? How are you going to live? And so I'm kind of in that space right now and just reevaluating, really what my day-to-day focus is and who I am and who I want to be and how I want to be a better man just a better uh, citizen, community
Yeah.
member.
Dude,
So,
we can get so caught up on our day-to-day endeavors, what we're trying to achieve, what we're trying to
yeah,
we're constantly trying to improve our fire base. And that's what's like something that's been like hammered into us that we don't stop to like focus on like what really matters. And nothing will do that more than expecting a kid. Cause I'm in the same boat. I'm
oh,
40,
nice,
got my
dude.
first kid on the way. And everything that I was focused on, all these mile markers and the whiteboard of planning in my office immediately went like, all right, none of this fucking matters. Like,
Yeah,
what am I going to do to ensure that this little life that I'm bringing into this world is going to like flourish? They're going to thrive. They're going to have every opportunity that I didn't have. And that helps you like put a lot of focus on what truly matters. And it's just that family. Like, what can I do to be of service to the community I live in? Because guess what? Now this kid is going to be growing up here. It's going to be going in schools here. It's going to be living amongst a community of people. So if I focus all my efforts on this realm, the fuck am I doing to improve the real fire base, the real thing that matters? I
right.
think that's something that all of us need to take into in the new year, man.
Yeah. Yeah, I'm trying to, and it's like it's definitely not easy, and it's definitely when you're in a vulnerable state, you're of course focused on it because of recent events or
Yeah.
whatever. But at the same time, uh, it, you fear or think about other times in your life that may have popped up, and it's like, is this just temporary? Is it going to wear off? Am I going to get back in that rut?
Yeah.
And it's not necessarily a negative rut. It's just not the most important rut. So, yeah, that's kind of where I'm like wondering that. I'm trying to explore that, and it's different when you're bringing a child into this world because that child's not going away. A
Yeah.
feeling might, you know what I
Yeah.
mean? Or a state of being, a mindset. But a physical person that you
Yeah.
are bringing in is not going anywhere. And, like that. So we're kind of in a different, like similar, but different in
Yeah.
sort of, looking at this new year. So yeah. And I want to do that one day. I've never had no children.
Yeah.
Definitely something I want to do, but I'm not getting any younger either, man.
Did I used to think that I was at a starting off at a deficit being older. It had this crisis of identity, leaving the military and get plugged back into faith, get plugged back into what really matters in life.
Yeah.
And I realized like, man, I'm not a father yet. And I failed as a husband in my first marriage, and God gave me this other marriage, and I'm not doing well in that. And I had to take a knee and reflect on like what's really important. And I realized like, okay, like SF is not the end all be all. Being a special forces guy is great. It's a great calling, but it's a chapter. And when I realized what really mattered is, okay, I got to put myself together. I got to devote myself to being the best husband I can be. And then we started looking at how to be able to like have that family. And that's when like you go to the testing, you go to fertility doctors and like, yeah, it's just not going to happen for you. And it's like, then you have that little crisis moment of like, fuck, I finally realized what's really important. And now they're telling me I can't have it. And for a split second, I almost went off back in the deep end. And I realized like, no, like you can be a father, you can be a parent in numerous ways. The important thing is understanding the reality of the situation and knowing that finally I understand what's important. Finally, I see clearly that a lot of the things I was doing in my professional career was just being selfish. I was doing just a lot of things that were just centric to me. Like I want to achieve the school. I want to go here and do that. And I want to achieve and conquer all these goals, but I wasn't really putting a lot of importance in like being good just for the sake of being good for others and helping others and bringing the best parts of me out to be of service to a wider community. And I realize now it's like now finally come full circle, having this little one on the way. I'm realized, man, like we never really learned that in the Q course, never learned that in life. Like I didn't have like a good, stereotypically great like mentorship program coming in the military. Like I always had broken men trying to lead other broken men. And I realize now it's like, dude, we got to help each other find our way. Like we have to do what we can to fix ourselves, get better. And then don't just stop there. Reach out into the void and find others who are finding guidance, but do it in an authentic way, being able to help others without trying to make a selling point or a pitch, which is something that I've seen a lot in a lot of different communities.
Yeah. Very transactional.
Yeah.
It's the kind of thing.
Yeah.
Stuff. Yeah. Yeah. I'm dealing with something like that right now too, where it's like, there's just people that I just know the best interest for them is not the best interest for the project and what it is. And
yeah.
And it's like, you need them in some ways because a lot of these things, it is a business and I get it, but it's also like kind of soul sucking, when you're out there trying to make things and tell stories that are going to make people think and inspire them. And you want to make a difference. You're not trying to, you don't care about turning a buck, it's great if money comes, cool, more comfort, but that's not why I'm doing any of this. And people don't understand that.
Yeah. It's hard to sell a concept that's just, I want to put good out in the world and people to accept it and be like, yeah, I want to support good, where all they see is money signs.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, it's one of the things with like MVP, with the MVP movie, for instance, it's out there. It's at a lot of places. It's everywhere, but it's not like I think people assume it's just because they see it everywhere and it's on Showtime and Paramount Plus and these things that it's like making all this money, and it's not.
Yeah.
It's just not. It's an illusion because there's so much out there, especially content wise now.
Yeah.
So it's like that's just an example, but it's tough. It's tough, and the little man never wins in these situations either. The artist always gets hosed. It's just the way it is, unless they're a big entity and,
yeah.
or something like that. And they're bringing uh, they bring their fame to it that kind of carries, then yeah, it can be a different situation. But if you don't have that, at a large scale, then you're going to get boned.
Yeah, dude, it's hard. I tell people all the time, it's really hard to sell positivity. It's really hard to come up and bring people onto a show and talk about how to overcome the hardest things in your life and not cover what sells, which is how horrible your deployment was, how many people you killed, how many times were you throwing grenades into a building.
Mm-hmm.
People just love listening to war trauma, but they don't want to hear the impact of overcoming your worst day. And it's like, you could sit down and make a video that's 30 minutes long, and it just breaks down the most heart-wrenching, horrible experience in combat or in life, and highlight none of the positives, none of the hero's journey afterwards, how you built yourself back up. And it's just nothing but combat trauma on top of combat trauma. And that will do like 50,000 views within the first 5 minutes. But then you focus on the good of how somebody overcame something and how they built themselves back up, what resources they used, what programs were there to help them, how they built a nonprofit. And you throw that up on YouTube and it'll get 2 likes. Because negativity sells, and it's hard. It's hard to continue pushing, picking back up for a lot of creators are focusing on the positive, focusing on the good, how we can help others, because people are constantly seeking out that negativity in the world. They're seeking out the car crash, the moments where it's just nothing but trauma. And it's like, dude, that's not healthy for you.
Yeah. Yeah, it's true. No, I mean, we are we live in a society, and maybe it's been like this forever, and I just don't know, but we are obsessed with violence,
Yeah.
and we feed off of fear and anger, and the media knows that, so they're going to keep pumping that, and it's not it's not their fault, it's our fault because we consume it.
Exactly. At the end of the day, like, we have to look inward, look at ourselves. Like, what media are you consuming?
Yeah, that's what we pick. We pick that as generally,
Yeah.
not every person, but mostly. And so, like, hey, if that's profitable, they're going to keep doing it. Those are businesses. Those are not information providers. They are businesses that are selling ads. You know what I mean? So,
yeah. And what led you to dive into this world? Like, there's a lot of people that often have that question of, man, like, why would you want to go off and get involved in this world of putting yourself out there in programs and media? Like, what's something that sparked that interest in you?
well, I mean, I was actually interested in storytelling, filmmaking, things like that when I became interested at 19, before I joined the Army.
Yeah.
I was living in San Diego. I was working on a fishing boat. I tried firefighting school. I mean, obviously it's a very honorable job and all that, but I wasn't ready to grow up, I don't think. And I didn't know if I was the right, if I could handle that. Like, is this, I can't have people's lives in my hands. Like, I'm a dummy, and, and so, and then I'd seen some films and projects, like growing up, it was always just kind of the basics, of what sports movies, military movies, Braveheart type stuff. You know what I mean? Like, and they're great films, don't get me wrong.
Yeah.
But it was just like that. And then I started to kind of watch some different stuff and was just interested. And I was like, I'm just going to go up to LA and be around the industry, and maybe something will happen, And so I took some acting classes and was interested in film school, but I didn't want to ask my parents to send me to film school because it's not cheap. And I wasn't even sure I was committed to it. And I really wasn't. Like, I wasn't committed to doing the work. I mean, I was just having a good time. I was working odd jobs, being a person in their early 20s. And then 9/11 happened when I was 20. Didn't join right away, but eventually started doing some relief work after traveling a bit. And that sort of led me to the 18 X-ray program, basically the SF baby, come off the street, basic training, school, pre-selection, selection, and off you go. And it was like, I was also, like I said, early 20s, kind of lost a bit, drifting. Most of my, kids I went to high school with were graduating college and starting their lives. And I just was still kind of not sure what to do. And I think part of it with the storytelling was I didn't really like my story. So it's like, maybe I just try and help tell other people's, because I didn't really have one yet, you know? I mean, I know everybody does, and we're all a story in progress, but yeah. And so I'd say without, I don't know, without moving to Los Angeles and with an interest at the time anyway, you know, not genuinely pursuing it, but without that interest in storytelling, I don't know if I would have joined the military. Maybe.
Yeah.
But if I would have been a firefighter, or if I would have started another career, did something, I probably wouldn't. I kind of had to be stuck and you know, with not a lot of prospects for it to be the right time and place for me, and to end up joining the military. And then, of course, through that process and serving and being a part of the special forces, being fortunate enough to make it, and then deploying and you know, and working in that space and learning how to problem solve and learning not how to quit.
Yeah.
learning how to just keep going and be relentless and make sacrifices. Not just the willingness to sacrifice your life for your country and your brothers, like your willingness to like sacrifice time and energy and show up and be on time, even though I'm late to everything these days. I was late to this call, wasn't I?
No, he's punctual. He's always on time.
yeah. It was, I was on time.
Plus or minus 5.
Yeah. I always like hockey slided into formation, you know, seconds before. That was me. I was that guy. But anyway, yeah. So it's like I needed to learn how to do those things through that experience, and then coming back to it after, you know, I went to college and I played football and I did these other things, and then coming back to at the age of 35, I guess, the storytelling thing after living a bit and having these experiences and learning how to do some things.
Yeah.
Only then was I prepared, and I'm still not fully prepared, but at least tricked myself into believing I was prepared enough to go try and make a movie, you know, tell stories.
Dude, you said something that's so true to so many of us that find our ways into the military, and certainly to SF. As a young man, you have a moment where you feel like, I don't have enough to tell a story. I don't have enough. Like, I'm not doing anything in life. And I found that to be true in my own journey. I'm a kid in Colorado trying to make college happen, trying to work full time in the National Guard. And it's just like, fuck, like none of this, like no one wants to read this book. No one's going to fucking look at my life and say like, wow, like he's done something that matters. It's like, fuck, man, like there's got to be something more to life than just constantly struggling and not having any adventure. And then you find yourself willing to go active duty, being willing to go into a place that you get to travel, you get to see the world and experience life. Like that's one thing that from your story, it's like, fuck, man, like your life just right now makes a fucking badass book. Fucking volunteered in Africa, became a Green Beret, went in the NFL, now is helping others. And it's like you're on TV, but at the same time, is that what really matters? Is that what really matters at the end of the day? Like we look at those things, but what we really need to highlight is like, how are we helping other human beings? How are we being of service back to the community? Because within that kid that traveled, that was a fisherman that went to Hollywood, that's a person of service. Like even in one of the most important ways we can be of service is telling stories. That's something that people fail to realize. Like we need to continue championing others that are working in this space, that are creating authentic stories that help us connect with each other. That's what we're missing. Like it's hard to get in front of somebody and sell this message of positivity and of hope and resilience. But if you create something that is on Netflix, that is on TV, that's circulating, that says just that sells that, like fuck, that's a force for good, man.
Yeah, I hope so. No, you're right. I mean, it's tough because sometimes sometimes the story doesn't work either. You know, sometimes the project isn't good. You know, the result, I guess, and not just because people didn't see it. I actually don't. I care less about the sheer numbers of people that see it. I care about the impact it has on those that do. and
Yes.
if it actually lands with them, even if it's just one person. I know that's corny and cliche, if I can just reach one person, but seriously, like if you
Yeah.
make a difference in somebody's life, if for somebody out there, that thing that you made, they took a left turn at that stop sign instead of a right turn, and the right turn was somewhere very bad, and the left turn was somewhere, hopeful, and then who knows what happens after that. Just because they saw, your story affected that one little tiny baby decision, it can have a huge ripple effect on the
Yeah.
world, and at least in their lives and their community. So you got to try, I think.
Yeah.
I don't know. No one really knows. No one knows what we're doing here. We're all just trying to figure it out. Like,
It's true, but you have to stay positive. You have to try.
yeah,
And I have to imagine that when that young man decided that it was time to leave the military, there had to have been a story or at least something that connected with you that gave you the audacity to dream of going into college football. Because let me tell you, at no point in my career that I think that I had what it took to do to do anything like what you've done, being able to go play football. So what gave you that spark?
I don't know. That is a great. I mean, I've been asked that before too, and I don't know where that comes from. I think it comes from a deep. Honestly, I think it comes from some deep seated insecurity in some ways, of
Mm,
like, I'm not doing enough. I'm not a good person. All these narratives that we everybody struggles
yeah.
with this at some level, different levels, of course. But I'm uh, I'm a waste of a good opportunity. I have a golden ticket.
Mm.
I'm a I'm a white American male. It comes from a
Your
good
enemy
family.
number one, damn it.
Yeah, exactly. Seriously, like it comes from a good family. Like, I do have a golden ticket to at least like try and
Yeah.
chase my dreams. And if I don't do that, that's kind of a disservice, because there's millions of people, billions maybe, that would love that opportunity, and a lot of them have it and don't realize it. But whatever. Um, and I think when you survive going to combat, for instance, you think about things differently. Um, and there's wins and losses with it too, though, because of that, because I felt like I need to go do this thing and that thing, all these mountains to climb,
Yeah.
so to speak. I got to go try all of them. You sacrifice personal relationships often, not just
Yeah.
romantic, but just like you just do. And I don't really have a home even now. Like, I'm on the road constantly. I'm all over the place. Like every home I've ever bought has been, not for me or a potential future with a family. It's been, is this a good investment? Is it an easy situation logistically? And so when you do that constantly, you don't feel like you have a home. You don't feel settled, and calm and comforting when
Yeah.
you're home. You're just
You're
like,
constantly running, man.
you're running and trying to lead, for what's the next thing and all that. And because you want to do all these things, because you have all these dreams and all that. And that's like a
Yeah.
double-edged sword. I mean, it's cool, and I don't regret doing it, but I'm coming to the point, I think, in my life where, and it's like, I don't want to stop that train, but I need to find a way to like balance it and not, and not, uh, just keep running 24/7 through the night. Like, have your
Yeah.
stops and have your home base. And so I'm, I'm like trying to figure that out now. But anyway, I just was late. I'm a late bloomer in so many ways. Like, I mean, I joined the military a little later. I never played football in my life till I was 29 years old. Um, Started the film stuff at 35, and now I'm 43. And so it's like, I feel like I've started over all these different chapters, and I've never really focused on, uh, the personal and the familial
Yeah.
so much, and so I'm trying to do that. I've talked about it for before, but to actually commit to it and dedicate to trying to do that, uh, it's different for me. It's definitely different. It feels
Yeah.
like this is something I should have been doing. This is something that often people kind of go through, 10, 15 years earlier in their lives that I'm going through now. So it's strange,
Dude, you're hitting exactly what so many of us hit right at transition from the military, that
Mhm.
pivot point. Like congratulations, you're now part of our the pivot crew. It's not a career, it's a life. I talked to Jeff Bosley, and he was the same way. He's like, dude, I'm not feeling the issues and the identity crisis that so many of my friends and brothers dealt when they left the service. I'm feeling it now. And it's a different point. Now I see it. Now I can identify with, and it just goes to show us like we're all going to go through this at some point in life. And some points, and I tend to think now, like we're lucky. We're so fucking lucky that we experience it right after leaving the military, because then we have the ability to take that knee, find out, do the security halt,
Yeah.
look, listen, smell, figure out what's going on, identify that next chapter, and be willing to like, okay, I got my bearings now. I can go into Scuba Road and not drown. I can go through this murky part of
Right.
my life and get to the other side. But to say you're gonna make it through this. You're gonna go through this part, and you got to just take a knee for a moment. You got to be able to realize that you've gone through so much shit in life, and now it's time to just reevaluate and figure out what truly matters.
Yeah.
Like that's a beautiful part of focusing on mind, body, and spirit, which I didn't know. I didn't realize how important that was. We always focused on the body, right? Like I want to be physically fit. I want to crush this
Live
12 mile.
forever.
Like, yeah, yeah. And then you fall the fuck apart, and you're like, oh, wait a second.
Yeah.
Now I got to rework on all these fucking domains. And that last pillar, man, that faith pillar, man, I didn't realize how important it was. I didn't realize that I needed to connect with my faith. And again, a shout out to my wife who brought me back to my faith, who brought me back to church. And that's the one thing I tell guys, like, dude, we're comfortable getting back in the gym. We could have gained 300 pounds. And if we get the right nutrition plan, if we get the right workout plan, we're going to fucking go back in there. Damn right, we're going to crush it. The mind domain, okay, eventually we can talk to somebody and get somebody plugged in to talk therapy, to the right mental health resource, and they'll start making gains on that. And that final piece, man, connecting with your spirituality, connecting with faith. And it doesn't have to be what I believe in, it doesn't have to be what any of your friends believe in, but as long as you connect with that domain, man, like you'll realize like, oh shit, like I have a way out of this. Because really and truly, like it's part of being a man too. Like we have to have that journey, Odysseus, right? Like the Odyssey. Like we've been on this kick of achieving and going after so many different goals, and then we don't pause and think like, okay, how the fuck do I get back home? How do I get back? Like this is your Odyssey. this is your challenge. Like, and the best thing that I've realized, it's having trust in the process, understanding like everything you've gone through has brought you to this moment today, to realize that what you're questioning, what you're going through, it's important. Don't just push it away. Like we all do a really good job of pushing that shit away, kicking the can down the road. Ask yourself those important, deep questions, man. Because like you do deserve to have a home. You gotta have roots, man.
Yeah. Yeah. No, I agree. I think I just, not to make excuses, but I'm going to make excuses. I've just had such a transient life, even
Yeah.
growing up. Like I had a good family, like I said, I had, and I still do. I'm very lucky to have, both my parents like poured everything into me and my brother and sister. But we, every about 4 or 5 years we moved, completely different place.
Yeah.
Over
Nomads.
yeah. And like that has kind of hung with me. And so it's been this like cycle, right almost on the dot of every 4 or 5 years, a new chapter, a new place, a new identity, a new, starting completely over. And it does wear on you, and it's exciting when you're young. And then as you get older, it's like, especially when you're alone, you're just like, what am I doing? Like, what, what now? And it's like, you look back at some of the things you helped build and be a part of, and, but you didn't stay around to, to maintain the foundation, and and then whether that's friendships or whatever, and you start to feel regret for things, and lack of effort in certain ways, and because you were too focused on these other things that don't last, that aren't eternal. So when you talk about spirituality, like it does resonate right now with me, especially. And I've always been a person that really struggled with faith.
Yeah.
Faith in people, with faith in anything, systems, with faith in God, whatever your God is, and I don't think that's a bad thing, because it keeps you inquisitive. Without doubt, there is no faith. Like, if for somebody that's just like, I 100% know this thing, I'm like, well, then you don't have faith, because you just know. You know what I mean? Like, that's different. I'm sorry, but it just is. Some of the most religious people I've ever met, including men and women of the cloth, have doubt, and I'm like, that's genuine. That's real, because we can't see, it's not just revealed to us, whatever this thing is. That's why there's so many different thoughts and beliefs and all these things. But it is important, it's important for your own mental health. And I do believe in some way, that the universe and we are all connected in some strange way, because there's just too many coincidences. There's too many strong pulls and things that happen, and even the terrible things, they just they're too impactful, and I don't know, it's strange. It's just it is a strange experience. Life is definitely a strange experience. But yeah, that's something that I'm trying, and I'm struggling and failing every day, but trying to focus on is that spiritual side, and and just trusting, and having that, keeping that faith through, what seems like hopeless times now and again. And I'm also, I think I'm an eternal optimist in some ways, even though I'm a very pessimistic person when it comes to things. But like, I've never genuinely struggled with this, this idea that, that a lot of people struggle with and succumb to, when you talk about suicide or feeling like the world would be better without you. I've never felt that, and I don't feel that. But it doesn't mean that just because you don't feel the extreme measure of that, it's not hard. You know what I mean?
Yeah.
And like you also, struggle with, am I making the right decision? Am I, should I take a left turn or a right turn here? Like, the same thing that person may have been affected by what you said or what you made that they saw. Like, there's every little choice in life has a huge impact, or can.
Yep.
And so just like that doubt and concern, it's hard. It's definitely hard. I just have to, I shouldn't tell anybody else. I just have to continue to learn and accept that, this is the way.
Yeah.
And when things are really hard and you're going through a tough time personally, like Marcus Aurelius said, the obstacle is the way.
Yes.
Don't quit on it. Don't run away from it. As sad as it might be, as hard as it might be, face it, face it, lean into it, because there's something there. And it's probably not what you're hoping for or what you're expecting. It's probably something totally different, but don't shy away from that. Don't quit. Just be with it. You're supposed to be sad and hurt sometimes and angry and all these things. Like, don't avoid that, because it will lead to a release of those feelings eventually.
Yeah.
Somehow. It's happened before with me, so I know it'll happen again. But I mean, that's, just to be completely transparent, like, that's where I'm in that place right now. I'm in the, one of these dark nights. I said it the other day on Twitter or something. Nobody saw it, but I was like, I'm in my dark night of the soul era. I should have said again, because it's not the first time. It's definitely not the first time. It's probably the fifth time of my life.
You gotta take a note from mindfulness. One of the things that I love teaching people is the importance of understanding how things dissipate. You hit your elbow really friggin' hard. Hurts like a motherfucker. Breathe. Understand that everything dissipates. Everything will work its way through. Same with
Yeah.
pain. Chronic pain is a big issue for veterans. And I found myself in the same space. I'm always going to be in pain. I'm always in pain. No, in this moment right now, in this moment that we are in right now, things are challenging. Things are tough. And if you're listening at home and you find yourself this holiday season dealing with a lot right now, if you're in a dark place, take a deep breath, pause, understand this will pass. This moment right now will pass.
Yeah.
You've been through waves, man. You're a surfer. Maybe not physically. Maybe you haven't ridden a wave in real time, but you're a surfer. You've ridden high times and you've been in some low times. Trust me. Just like in the military, you have good commands, you have bad commands.
Yeah.
Things are great with a good commander. Things are really bad when you have a bad one. Waves, man. You're
It's
riding
true.
waves. Just as surely as this place that you're in right now feels like rock bottom, tomorrow or maybe the next day or next week, it'll feel like the best times of your life. You just have to be an optimistic. Hold on. Dude, we've been through worst. Nate, I know you've been through worse. The Q course, that sucks. Scuba Road, that sucks. We all get through these times. And when we forget about how resilient we are, and when we forget about our grit, take a moment. Look through your photos. I know you're telling me you don't have selfies. I guarantee you have selfies. Look through your photos. Find those moments in life when you're smiling, when you've gone through something difficult, and on that backside, you're like, fuck, dude, look what we just did. Or take a chapter from our book, man, Security Halt, what we like to promote. It's doing something difficult. Go do something hard. Go do something hard that challenges you physically. Go for a run. Go for a ruck. Be willing to go into discomfort. And then after you're done with that, pause and reflect on how good you feel. That right there is a wave. You're out there rucking 12 miles and it fucking sucks and it's miserable. And then you stop and you're done. Even if you're by yourself, you feel a sense of accomplishment and you're like, fuck yeah, I did it. Like, all right, it's a little moment of a wave. Chase those moments. Nate, I can't thank you enough for being here, man, and for being vulnerable enough. But before I let you go,
Sir,
tell us about MVP, man. Give us a quick roundup of what you're doing, because come to find out, in a lot of the stuff that I focus on Security Halt and in one of the other shows I produce, shameless plug, Broken Brains with Bruce Parkman, we talk about the effects of concussion, TBIs, and RHI on the human brain. And two populations that know that impact very well are NFL players and our veterans.
absolutely. I mean, and it's not just NFL players with MVP. It's all athletes, you know.
Yeah.
So MVP stands for Emerging Vets and Players, and what we do is essentially we bring together combat vets and former professional athletes, and we help them find purpose and identity when they lose a uniform. And whether it's physical injuries or, you know, mental, moral, emotional, whatever, like people struggle, people deal with stuff. We all have shit in our lives. We just do. But there's value in that shit too. You know, we get to choose what to do with it. We can let the stench overwhelm us, which is tempting and easy to do, or you can turn it into fertilizer and grow something, you know?
Yeah.
And when you've gone through stuff and when you've experienced hardship, when you've been told you're not good enough anymore, you're not worth it anymore, and you get cut from a team, for instance, or you come back from a deployment and you're struggling with survivor's guilt. Why did I make it out? And these guys didn't make it out. Like, as hard as all that is, like there is value in it. There's value in it. Because you have an opportunity now that you've been through some trials and some tough stuff, and you still achieve something great. You know, you were a part of something very powerful, very important. On the military side, you know, look, the sacrifices, the stakes, they're very different on the battlefield and the ball field. We would never compare war to playing sports, but that connection to a team, that camaraderie, the locker room, the number one thing when you ask athletes or veterans, what do you miss about what you did? They always say the guys, you know, that the bonds, like that is really hard to replicate in the quote unquote real world, in the civilian world. It's hard to find, you know? And, so what we encourage at MVP is, you know, to not only join this community and be around people who have experienced the same things as you, who can help you walk that walk through the transition. And the transition doesn't always happen right after you get out. Like we were kind of talking about it earlier. It can happen many years after, and it's always happening at some level. Like you're always transitioning and changing and growing, like you should be.
Yep.
But yeah, like when you realize that there's people out there, a lot of people out there, who don't have the exact same experience as you, that feel the same things you do and struggle with the same things you do. Maybe it starts with, I come out of the military and I only feel like, I don't feel like anybody gets me except for other people that went to war and lost like I lost. And then you're around some other vets with some different stories. And then you're around some athletes that when they start talking about stuff, you're like, that's very similar to what I feel and understand. And then you realize that there's people outside of the vet and athlete spheres that struggle. And that everybody has shit in their life. Everybody,
Yes.
It really helps bring it back and get us back into, a reintegration really, which is super important. And then when you realize you're not alone, you've got all these other people that feel these things and experience these things. Now, how do I want to exercise this pain? What do I want to do with it? Whether it's artistic or creative or professional or familial, how do I be a better, father, which I'm not yet, but how do you use those things to coach, to teach, to mentor? And then, whatever it is in life, like how can I be a better leader in the workforce and all of that stuff. You realize all the things that you thought were negatives, and the things that you regretted and the pain and the some what you'd maybe consider the worst days of your life. That those are the real. That's where the real value lies, in those lessons and in those times that you survived and you kept going. And you look at the accolades and the achievements and the medals and the championships and whatever, and that's great. But what you really are proud of is the moments when the voice in your head was telling you to give up and you didn't. You kept going. You kept going until you found that stupid glow stick in the ground with a grid coordinate on it. And you thought you'd never find it and you found it, man, I almost quit 5 miles ago or whatever. And then you just keep going and you start to build on that. And you have to you remember what that feels like when you were building on little wins in the military, on the sports field, where you lacked confidence. And then all of a sudden you're just like, I can do anything. You get to this point, and then when you lose the uniform and you lose the identity, like all of that can go away quickly, and all of a sudden you're just like, oh my gosh, I don't know anything about this world, about this life, and then little by little you realize like it's all the same. It's all connected. Those lessons you learned, the values that were instilled in you and that you discovered inside yourself, they translate to anything in life, really. And then, you can only grow from there. So that's really what MVP is. I mean, that was a long-winded answer, but that's what it's about. It's just that community of belief, of faith, if you want to take it full circle to what we're talking about. Faith that things will get better, but also action within that belief, not just believing and waiting for something to happen, taking action, trying to ride that edge of, without smothering this thing or killing this dream. Like, how can I be patient, work towards it, and honor it, and hope that I'll get this shot or whatever it is, while also like taking action every day. Love is an action. It's not just a feeling. It's an it's an action. You have to do things. So I think that's because a lot of vets, and athletes too, they get done and they think, I'll never be great again. That's it. All I know is this thing. And they kind of shut down, and they just like, maybe they still even have some belief and faith that something will happen, but they're just waiting for other people to open the door for them. And it's like, Mark Duplass, a filmmaker, said it best: the cavalry's not coming. Like,
yes,
no one's coming to save you. You know what I mean? They're not coming. You gotta do it. Once you start doing it, the cavalry will arrive and help you, but they're not going to come just take you out of your room, and pull the shades up and, get life going. Like that's not happening.
Exactly. Yo, the
You gotta,
QRF does not exist.
yeah,
There's no soda to call.
it does. It does when you're fighting. You know
Yeah.
what I mean? When you're
Yeah.
fighting and you're in it, the QRF will show up. But if you're waiting in the patrol base and, you know, you're not going on missions and they're not going to come get you.
Exactly. Yeah. Yes.
You know what I mean? Like,
Yeah.
no. So,
yeah, man. Dude, Nate, thank you so much for coming on, brother.
thank you,
I
brother.
know you got a tight schedule today, and I just want to say thank you for being here. Thank you for sharing your journey and what you're up to today, and for being willing to step into the arena and help our players and veterans out. We need more men that are willing to do that, to lead these causes. And again, thank you for being here. To everybody listening, thank you for tuning in. And if you're struggling today, just remember, keep riding that wave. Understand that nothing that you're going through is too bad and too horrible that it just won't go away eventually. You just have to stay positive, trust in faith and in action, and take it day by day. And to everybody out there that's having an awesome time, keep moving, and we'll see y'all next time. Till then, take care.